Okay, Dara Khanum, we are ready.
Hey, so good evening, friends. I'm going to mute you all. Such power, just kidding. So welcome to, I lovingly refer to this as Dr. B's Fireside, but it's our fireside. And so welcome new friends, welcome old friends. In the fireside, we'll say some prayers, and then we'll hear from a speaker, and our speaker, a wonderful speaker, will share from his own perspective. In the faith, in the Baha'i faith, we have no clergy. So it's personal investigation of truth. We're not here to convert anyone. We're just here to have elevated conversations and connections. Come on, all right, so Dr. B.
Thank you, Dara Khanum. Gary, are you ready? We have our program is very constant. We are open with a prayer, which is non-denominational. And then we read a passage that is related to the talk that we are going to have. And then speaker is introduced. And after that, we'll have the speaker, and Dara will open the chat room, and everybody is encouraged to ask questions regarding to the speak, and then we will have a closing prayer. Without much ado, Gary, are you ready?
Actually, Gary, let me pause you for 1 minute. I forgot my duties. It's been a couple of days. I'm rusty. Please, everyone, if you could save your comments from the chat box until after our speaker is done, that would be really, really helpful. So thank you for saving your comments, and we'll open up for comments and questions after. Okay, Gary, unmute. Thank you for your patience.
All right. I'm reading the prayer for America. O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standards of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee through thy bounty and bestowal. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Gary. Corey, are you ready?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to read a quick reading from the Revelation of Baha'u'llah. That's by Shoghi Effendi. I'm going to read it slowly because Shoghi Effendi is dense in his writing. And everyone just let it kind of percolate in your brain, because all of this will be relevant to tonight's topic. The faith of Baha'u'llah has assimilated, by virtue of its creative, its regulative, and ennobling energies, the varied races, nationalities, creeds, and classes that have sought its shadow and have pledged unswerving fealty to its cause. I'm going to pause here for just a second. The cause referred to here is serving humanity, developing humanity. It has changed the hearts of its adherents, burned away their prejudices, stilled their passions, exalted their conceptions, ennobled their motives, coordinated their efforts, and transformed their outlook. While preserving their patriotism and safeguarding their lesser loyalties, it has made them lovers of mankind and determined upholders of its best and truest interests. While maintaining intact their belief in the divine origin of their respective religions, It has enabled them to visualize the underlying purpose of these religions, to discover their merits, to recognize their sequence, their interdependence, their wholeness and unity, and to acknowledge the bond that vitally links them to itself. This universal, this transcending love, which the followers of the Baha'i faith feel for their fellow men of whatever race, creed, class, or nation, is neither mysterious nor can it be said to have been artificially stimulated. It is both spontaneous and genuine. They whose hearts are warmed by the energizing influence of God's creative love cherish his creatures for his sake and recognize in every human face a sign of his reflected glory. Now, I'm going to skip a couple of paragraphs, but before I do, I just want to call everyone's attention to something that often gets forgotten. Preserving their patriotism and maintaining intact the belief in the divine origin of their religions. Nobody gives up anything by adopting the Baha'i outlook or becoming a Baha'i. You don't have to give up your love of your country. You don't have to give up your belief in your religion. You're just supplementing it with a love for all countries, a love for all mankind, and a love for all religions. But nothing is lost. Nothing is meant to be lost. So now I'm going to continue a couple paragraphs later. Small wonder if by the pen of Baha'u'llah, these pregnant words, written in anticipation of the present state of mankind, should have been revealed. It is not for him to pride himself who loveth his own country, but rather for him who loveth the whole world. The earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. And again, that one indeed is a man who today dedicateth himself to the service of the entire human race. Through the power released by these exalted words, he explains, he hath lent a fresh impulse and set a new direction to the birds of men's hearts and hath obliterated every trace of restriction and limitation from God's holy book.
Thank you, Corey. Ray, are you ready?
Yes. Well, tonight we have the opportunity to hear Dr. Fouad Abbas speak tonight on what is a Baha'i. And you can tell from his title that he is a physician. Relevant to the topic tonight, he was introduced to the faith by his Persian wife, to whom he says he is eternally grateful. As he started his journey, he says that he was interested in many religious teachings because he believes they all speak part of the truth. And he's been coming to these firesides for over 4 years now. On a personal note, I have an opportunity to attend a class each week with Dr. Abbas, and whenever he speaks, there's such wisdom in his words, and that comes from just years of learning. So tonight, as he shares his perspective on what is a Baha'i, listen intently, because when he speaks, there is a lot of wisdom there. So Dr. Abbas, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Ray. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I can live up to that. But thanks for the introduction and the pump. The way I think is usually by lectures and slides. So I have slides. So can I, is it share my screen? Do I push share my screen?
Yeah, let me give you privileges.
Okay. Wow, I have hospital privileges now. I have.
We can trade. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, hopefully you can do it now, Fouad.
Okay, is this, let's see. Did you guys see my screen?
No, not yet.
Nope. Okay, then it's not.
So, and if there's any music or anything, click the bottom.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm just trying to, let's see, how are we going to do this? Post and learn how to, nope, where am I? Zoom, okay, wait a minute, let's see. It says share the screen, right? And it should come up with
Yep, so if you click on where your presentation is, there you go.
You see me now? Okay, good.
It's coming.
Yes.
We see Zoom. Now we see Zoom.
Now you see Zoom and you see a bunch of things. Let me just, okay. All right, can you see that? What makes
There it is, perfect.
All right, good. Let me just put it as there. How's that?
Excellent.
I don't know how to get rid of myself. Here we go. Let me get rid of myself so I can, okay. So actually the title, initially I wanted to talk about what makes a good person. And then I realized that a lot of this is infiltrated in what the Baha'i teachings do. So it's not what is a Baha'i so much, but what makes a Baha'i. The 10 qualities that I will talk about, obviously they're not the only 10 things, but they're ageless in how to be good, because the Baha'i faith has a lot of investment in making you a better person and also making society a better person. Can everybody hear me and see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see if I can move it. Okay, it's not moving. All right. Okay, good. All right, so that's, I just have to touch it. All right. So what makes really a Baha'i is someone who, let me just, I don't know, my screen is not exit full screen, no. You know, reading the teachings that's the biggest deal, because reading the teachings allows you to understand essentially a blueprint on what it takes to be a good person. And a good person is you'll see later, what are the qualities? They're actually very similar to being a good physician. And honestly, I took the talk on how to be a good physician and modified it to realize that it's really the same thing as what makes a Baha'i. You have to contemplate on the readings. The readings are dense. I think Corin's idea, it's really dense. A paragraph can sort of take 15 minutes just to be able to read and contemplate. And then the idea is to incorporate these teachings in people's lives. And the more you understand, the more you then are able to do so. So part of being a Baha'i, what makes a Baha'i, is service to humanity, which essentially melts away prejudice and all these sort of selfish things that we think about. But that's really, it's pretty simple. I guess I could stop my talk now, but we know all religions have these things in common. They're trying to be able to make us more moral, the development of virtues. And essentially these are virtues, what I'm going to be talking about, and how to inculcate into those virtues the morality that we need. Now, mind you, there are differences in religions, and usually the difference of each religion, it has to do with time and place, and rests on specific needs of that culture and society at that time. And this is well illustrated in the writings. It's very open, as we'll see a little bit later, that it's very open that there are differences. So just a simple difference in the people that are not as familiar with the Baha'i religion, and I'm trying to make it so that people that are non-Baha'is can understand everything that I say. So the governance in the Baha'i religion is a universal house of justice, which are 9 members elected every 5 years by worldwide national spiritual assemblies. So in Catholics, it's really a college of cardinals that elect one pope and appointed for a lifetime. But the college of cardinals do come from all over the world as well. So there are differences. It's not that. So who are the players? I know in the beginning, when I started to come here, I would hear, you know, this name and this name and this name, and I had no clue what they're talking about. And the names kind of sounded foreign to me. And even though we briefly talk about this a lot of times in the Fireside as an introduction, I wanted to just take a little bit of time. So who would you say are the players in the Baha'i religion? You don't have to yell it all out, but essentially the players start early and may not necessarily be people that you may think about. But Abraham, Moses, the Buddha, Zoroaster from the Zoroastrian side, you know, they're all players. They're all the belief that these are all people sent to be able to improve mankind. Mahavira is for the Jainism, of course, Jesus and Muhammad, that these people came, and in some ways I only think in medical terms, which is, I think, a handicap for me, but these names or these people are catalysts into a formula and into a chain reaction that speeds up from going from one place to another place. And the other place is an improvement of consciousness and how we can be better people. Now, you may say, well, better and good, that sounds like a judgment. And yes, it is. Now, the more recent players, though, are the people that are associated with the Baha'i religion. Like there's Ali Muhammad. And, you know, for people that are Persian. Don't get turned off by the Arabic names, Arabic sounding names. They're just names. They're not anything different, but also known as the gate, which is the opening, also known as the bab or the bab, if you're trying to do it correctly. Then there's Husni Ali Nuri, who is essentially the main person in the religion, Baha'u'llah, who I can't even know how much he's written, but I would never be able to read it in my lifetime. But it's enough to tell us exactly which way we should go, what we should do, and many examples on how we should behave. There's Abbas Nuri, which I think the only reason my wife married me is because my last name is Abbas, and she really wanted to be an Abbas. That's the only, not the only reason, but she really gets a kick out of saying that. He's also known as Abdul Baha, which is essentially if you know the doula in people that are undergoing labor and delivery, the doula just means slave of. So Abdul Baha is the slave of Baha'u'llah, and he was the son of Baha'u'llah. His grandson, Shoghi Rabbani, also known as Shoghi Effendi, is the grandson of Abdul Baha. But these are the players of the Baha'i faith. Between them, the starting with the Bab, the proliferation of all the writings with Baha'u'llah, the interpretation by Abdul Baha, and then also with Shoghi Effendi as the guardian. And I will go through these names, and I just wanted to be sure that everybody understands who they are. So Shoghi Effendi here, as the guardian of the faith, summarized the idea of progressive revelation in that you're given essentially, what to do in a simple way. And I'm so sorry, my wife is just sending me a thing to send her the link because she wants to get on. So, but what he says is the fundamental principle enunciated by Baha'u'llah is that religious truth is not absolute. Not absolute. I mean, to me, that's like I have to stop for several minutes to understand that it's not absolute. And he says it's not absolute, but relative, that divine revelation is continuous and progressive, that all great religions of the world are divine in origin, as we saw all the players, and that their missions represent successive stages at different times and place. So again, I think of it as a hypothesis, and the revelations are essentially new data to the problem. So there was the new data of Christianity, that you should turn the other cheek. There's the new data, and then there's a catalyst of Jesus Christ making the new data proliferative. And then there is the catalyst of Muhammad also saying new data is coming. So that's the way I look at it, and I realize it's different. So one of the conclusions that can be drawn from the concept of progressive revelation is that old scriptures need to be understood and given specific context in light of the new knowledge revealed by the latest and fuller revelation of God. Essentially, the latest hypothesis overrides the previous hypothesis. The idea that a new revelation has authority to subsume the previous revelation derives from humanity's continual process of intellectual development, an alteration of the old views in terms of new experiences. Humanity invariably moves from one stage of understanding to another. It's very similar to me as science also follows the same logic. When new data comes in and the spectrography comes in and we understand what's inside a nucleus, we start to understand that, hey, there is something called DNA. And the old theories that the proteins may be the reason why people end up being able to reproduce is just abandoned. It's just abandoned. It was a good theory, but there's better data. And essentially, to me, this is what this is. This is better data. And it's up to the person interpreting the study to discern whether this is better data or not. So the goal of the Baha'i religion, to me, is to make the best you can be. And if you can be the best, then you will influence others to be your best by knowing who you are. And there are a lot of things that, figuring out who you are, and there's a lot of other writings that can help, but that's it. That's just how can you be the best you can be? Well, to be your best, you need to follow some principles. And in the Baha'i religion, there are principles, rules, and regulations, but they're not too onerous. They're really just common sense. and they will be replaced in the future. That's actually a belief of the Baha'i religion, that whatever we're doing now is something better is going to come up. And that's the optimism that, yeah, you know, we may have somebody that we don't like running the country, but you know, the future is going to be better. We're going to learn from lessons and we're going to make it better. So when followed, these principles will lead to a better you. So what is America's religion? Does anybody know? Would anybody guess? I mean, I can't see you guys, but would anybody guess what's America's new religion? No? Well, it's probably pretty easy, I think, to figure it out. Really, it's not that difficult. It has to do with money. Money, and as my friend Bob Marley says, money is numbers, and numbers never end, my friend. They never end. And if you look for money to be happy, your happiness will never end. I think well said. And to my secular friends, that's what you have to realize. Whether you're an atheist or you say you're an atheist, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because you believe in something. And people really believe in America. They love America. And obviously I do too. But to understand what is the belief in that. So who is this man? Don't all yell it out. Who is this man? He's a younger person. Obviously, he was younger at this time. Who is this person?
Einstein.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Albert Einstein. He left Germany in 1933. His apartment and office was raided by the Nazis. Okay. He came to America and taught in Princeton. Now, you know, Princeton, like a lot of very smart people go to Princeton, and that's primarily why he went. But the reality is that Princeton had a reputation of anti-Semitism, okay? But it didn't deter him. It didn't deter him. He was there. So the freshman class of Princeton in 1928 elected Einstein as the second greatest man on earth. Isn't that wonderful? Who did they elect, though, as the greatest man on earth? Any guesses? This gentleman. Did anybody think that that was possible? I don't know. Public opinion is fickle, is very fickle. I also have to tell you, my mom stopped talking to me for 4 days because of the election. I thought that was kind of funny, but it was really, it's kind of funny. So now on to the 10 qualities, and I'm going to say 10 qualities of goodness. Okay, what makes a Baha'i? It makes them good. It makes them try to strive for goodness. Now understand, these qualities are not quantitative, and that's why it's not in the science realm. Though we can talk about them, though we can understand them, it's just not. We're not able to quantify them. So it's difficult for science to be able to measure, but we know them very well. And a lot of this, I'm going to blend it into what makes a really good physician, okay, as the quality. So there's quality and quantity, and none of these qualities can be measured. So here's a cartoon, and here's God staring at the earth, and he says, geez, I'm starting to prefer the ones who don't believe in me. Because a lot of people just are good to be good only, but to be able to be good with a goal is so much easier and so much more guidance. So on to the first quality, and that is compassion. So it's the ability to identify with the suffering or to imagine ourselves in a similar state. It's the component of good physician care. It's really good care of all of us and requires a grounding in moral principles. Understanding is the ability to act of what one knows. Now, this picture, you have never really lived until you have done something for someone who can never repay you. when I first saw it, I really couldn't stop crying for 5 minutes because I recognized this very deeply and wish I could do more. But that's what compassion is. And Baha'u'llah talks about that. If the learned and world-wisely men of this age were to allow mankind to inhale the fragrance of fellowship and love, every understanding heart would apprehend the meaning of true liberty and discover the secret of undisturbed peace and absolute composure. I wish I had more compassion. It would make my life a lot easier. The second quality is understanding. It is not merely knowledge or comprehension. It's the ability to act and to think on what you know. It is like learning a flexible performance, more like playing improvised jazz. In the physician realm, it's learning the facts can be crucial backdrop to learning for understanding, but learning facts alone is not going to make you understand. Understanding is a much deeper level. And when one reads the writings, it takes several layers of understanding. You may superficially understand it, but when you read it again, it makes a different understanding. The Universal House of Justice, as I introduced earlier, is the governing body of the Baha'i religion. And on behalf of the Guardian, it is stated that if we are better, if we show love, patience, and understanding of the weaknesses of others, you have to realize that when stupid people talk, you have to just let them be who they are and not necessarily belittle them. You have to understand the weaknesses of others. If we seek never to criticize, but rather encourage others, we'll do likewise. And we can really help not only the cause of the Baha'i faith, but all of us and gain spiritual strength. So what is the difference of these two pictures? Again, I told you this talk is more of a physician bent, and I'm sorry about that. What do you think the difference is?
Body language.
Body language. And what are they saying? So what they're saying is empathy. It's another concept. You want to be what makes a Baha'i, you have to have empathy. You have to have compassion and understanding, and comes across as warmth. The social emotional ability with two distinct components, the affective, which is the emotion, and the cognitive, the ability to understand the emotions. This is stated in the religious writings as religion must be, as Baha'u'llah says, a source of unity and concord of compassion and empathy. Unity is a big deal in the Baha'i faith, that we just have to be united, period. There's no way getting around it. There's no way of being disunity. It just doesn't make sense, because that's how we're going to solve our problems. So with reference to this is Shoghi Effendi is talking to someone with reference to the question of individuals can help each other by accepting to suffer for each other's sake. So he's saying you can suffer for other people, and that's where service comes in. Surely such sacrifice for our fellow humans can have helpful results. This law of sacrifice operates in our own lives as well in the lives of the divine manifestations. So it's not so much just to suffer for your family, but it's really to suffer for the human family and mankind altogether. True love requires faith and trust and loyalty, not chocolate, flowers, and expensive gifts. So to my wife, that's why I just don't buy expensive gifts for her. No, I'm just kidding. The fourth quality is honesty. Honesty is still usually the best policy when communicating with people, especially if you convey it with genuine care and concern. Honesty, virtue, and wisdom, as Baha'u'llah states, is a saintly character redound to the exaltation of man. I had to look up what redound was. I have to tell you, it just means the greater of. While dishonesty, imposture, ignorance, and hypocrisy lead to his abasement. It's spelled out as to what we should do. There's no It's like, you know, blocks that you just put the blocks together, and this is what you're going to build. So the fifth one is competence. If any, and this is Abdul Baha talking, if any of the friends should enter into service of the government, they should make their occupation a means of drawing nearer to the divine threshold. They should act with probity and uprightness, rigorously shun all forms of venality and corruption, and content themselves with the salaries they are receiving, taking pride rather than the degree of sagacity, competence, and judgment that they can bring to their work. You have to just take pride in all the work you do. It doesn't matter what you do, but that prideness will come through, and so will the competence. Number 6, commitment. So it's more than a job, but a calling. And it's a calling, I think, a lot of times to be a physician, because the commitment that you have to make is a very long and arduous one. And most people don't necessarily follow it because of the personal sacrifice they have to do to commit. So commitment as a personal source, it protects us from the negative effects of stress, because it enables them to attach direction and meaning to their work. Some of you know I work in Baltimore and commute there every day from Bethesda, but you know, I'm committed. I will wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning if I have to, and usually it's 5:20 every day. And I feel bad because the alarm goes off, and my wife, I feel like I'm waking her up at the same time too. But there's a commitment. You have to have a commitment, and you have to have a commitment in your life to be a good person. Universal House of Justice says delegating responsibility increases the level of participation and helps those involved develop a sense of loyalty and commitment to the faith and to the Baha'i community. Recently, we had elections, and everybody needed to participate so that they felt committed to whoever is elected and to be able to support them. Delegation means assigning responsibility to committees of individuals and authorizing them to take actions required to carry out their responsibility. And these are just the way you're committed to this. Now, let me just talk about the commitment is also an internal, I can't see my slide, an internal struggle. So in short, if you're feeling distancing coming on, you got to be able to get some help and commit that you want to do better, feel better, and act better. This isn't Sisyphus that keeps falling with the rock and then have to push it up again. You have to be committed that you have to keep doing the rock. When I read this initially, the story of Sisyphus, I said, gosh, what made him keep doing the rock, pushing it up again and again? So there's this area in the Bible, the Old Testament, in Genesis 23, where Jacob wrestles with a man or an angel, or sometimes it's slated as God, all night. And at dawn, the angel leaves. And then Jacob actually wakes up and has a limp in his leg. And as they say, that's where he was cut. But Jacob comes to terms with God at the end. And then God chooses him and gives him a different name, which he gives him Israel. So did really Jacob wrestle with a man or God? Or did he just have the internal struggle as to should he commit and also allow God to be able to use him as an instrument as to what the will. Essentially, that's the commitment. Nope, I have to, okay. We were all humans until race disconnected us, religion separated us, politics divided us, and wealth classified us. But remember, we're all humans. Now, Sir William Osler was one of the 4 people at Hopkins, he's internal medicine. And he said, good physicians treat the disease, great physicians treat the patient who has the disease. And you have to really like people to be able to do that. To be a good Baha'i or doctor or person, you first have to be a good human being. You have to be a good spouse. You have to be supportive of your spouse. You have to be a good colleague, a good customer at the supermarket. Don't get so angry when someone has 50 packages on a 10 package line, and a good driver on the road. Catch yourself when you're irritated, and you will become irritated. And we're human, but then Just recognize it, and that next time you'll be better. So in some ways, humanity is also stated by Abdul Baha, is the light of the celestial world makes war against the world of shadow and illusion. And you can think of that as evil. The rays of the sun of truth dispel the darkness of superstition and misunderstanding. And a lot of it is just a misunderstanding in many ways. So humanity is addressed by this. It's easier to be a good person if you genuinely like people. That's true. And the best way to start is just look around you. And you can start. You can start by being good for these people. If you don't fight for what you want, don't cry for what you lost. And what this is the courage to be able to have the moral ability to define, as moral courage can be defined as a voluntary willingness to stand up for the act of one's ethical beliefs, despite barriers that may inhibit the ability to proceed towards the right action. That's moral courage. Nelson Mandela sewed it up as saying, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Mm-hmm. Now, Abdul Baha said, women are better. They're just better. The woman has greater moral courage, and he said that in the London talk, than the man. She has also special gifts, which enable her to govern in moments of danger and crisis. If necessary, she can become a true warrior. And if you look at around the world, and I learned that from Dr. Lopez, that one of the lowest rates of COVID in their countries happens to be with the women that are the prime ministers, such as New Zealand, Singapore, and Germany, and in one of the Danish countries, which I don't remember which one. But there's a real moral courage to this. So physicians and Baha'is, we commonly all face situations that call for moral courage, including for physicians delivering care to infectious patients, meeting angry patients or family members, addressing incompetent or impaired colleagues, disclosing a medical error, and raising concerns about unethical or unsafe practices. Those are all tests of moral courage. So the aim of moral courage shouldn't be discouraging if you can't always meet these high expectations, but the courage isn't always the act of trying to do what is right, but sometimes just the act of trying again and again, as these always come up for something to do. So number 9 is respect. Do you give respect to all people, regardless? One of the first things that I know that in conversation, when you hear, oh, she's going out with so-and-so on, the first question comes in people's sort of conversations, oh, what does he do? What does he do? Why are they asking what economic situation does he do? You see, you want to pigeonhole that person into your own mind. Is he high or low or medium or what? And ironically, when a bunch of guys hang around and they say, oh, listen, I started dating her. Oh, what does she look like? So it's an interesting dichotomy that we have. And it's obviously arbitrary. But do we give the respect that everybody deserves? This is a bit long, and I'm sorry, but the Universal House of Justice actually in 2010 put out, concerning the position of Baha'is are to take regarding homosexuality and civil rights. The purpose of the faith to Baha'u'llah is the realization of the organic unity of the entire human race. And many times in the writings, Baha'u'llah talks about that the whole human race is a body, and how could you cut off an arm and not feel the whole body would feel it? And Baha'is are enjoined to eliminate from their lives all forms of prejudice and to manifest respect towards all. Therefore, to regard those with a homosexual orientation with a prejudice or disdain would be against the spirit of the faith. So the Baha'i religion is trying to make you a better person. Furthermore, a Baha'i is exhorted to be an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. And it would be entirely appropriate for a believer to come to the defense of those whose fundamental rights are being denied or violated. I think that really sums it up beautifully as to what makes a Baha'i? So finally, and I'm coming towards the conclusion, I'm sorry, it wasn't a very long talk, but I'll try to make it simple. Optimism. And optimism has been linked with a range of physical benefits. People who are optimistic have reduced heart disease, stroke, their lipids are better, they're just healthier behaviors usually. They're more likely to exercise, eat more healthy, stress is better, and just abstain. So Shoghi Effendi puts that together as optimism as material affairs go from bad to worse in the world. And I know Alborz had talked about this in other firesides, that in some ways when things get worse, the Baha'is are optimistic because they know things are going to get better, that there's a grander plan, and things may get a lot worse before they get better, because when things get bad, people look around to see what's better, what else can we do that's better? And the Baha'is have a lot of good resources and ideas on how things can become better. So when the world goes bad to worse, the confidence, optimism, love, and hope of the believers will, by force of contrast, shine out as the ever brighter beacon leading to people the path of truth, the way laid down by God, which alone can guide them to the promise of the future. I think that sums it up well. When things are going bad politically or economically, that it'll force people to say, you know, this isn't working. We have to do this in a better way. You know, how bad does it have to get before they do that? It's hard to say. I know from treating people that are alcoholics, a lot of times, and not all of them, but they have to lose everything, job, spouse, family, and then they start to reverse. And I hope for humanity's sake, because we could lose a lot of a lot of things before we get to the bottom of it, where we start to look for other ways to do it. So think about it. What are you? I said what makes a good Baha'i, but what are you? What do you want to be? What do you desire? What do you want to accomplish? Those are all questions that we have, whether we're young, whether we're older, but they're ways of being able to do things. And the blueprint that the Baha'i faith has is really easy and an excellent way to be a better you. Baha'u'llah left a blueprint on how to be good. So, conclusion about Baha'is, and here are the 10 qualities. Of course, there's many, many more, but these are the 10 qualities that clearly put Baha'is far ahead when they think about what they need to do, because these are all in the writings. I thank you for your attention.
Wow.
Wow. So, okay, I'm speechless, but please stop sharing your screen so we can see everyone.
How do I do that? I don't even
But
know.
If you
Here.
it says stop.
Is that better? No?
No, not yet.
Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Got
There
it.
it is.
Okay.
Okay, but Dara, before we go to question and answer, I want to share something with everybody. You know, Dr. Fouad Abbas comes from Egyptian father and Greek mother. And those people, they are familiar with history. They know two great civilization comes from that. And this gentleman has taken from both of them. And I'm so happy and proud to be his friend, really. The day that I met him, I fell in love with him, and still I am. And every day I love him more for his wisdom, really, so much. Now, Dara, you go for it.
Wow. Oh, God, you are indeed
Doctor,
the virtuous physician, and you have guided us to understand how these principles are really the blueprint, as you said, for being a good person. So thank you. So if you have questions, friends, and also comments, please put them in the chat box. And if you can't, Mrs. Roshanian, please go ahead.
I want to thank you to Dr. Abbas. It's very beautiful, wonderful. I want to ask the doctor, is possible to send to me, email to me, his talk is very good. I'm so happy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sure. I'd be more than happy. I can send it to Dara, and then Dara, you can post it wherever you want to do. It's very easy. Not a problem. Of course.
Thank you. That's very
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so seeing lots of things. Bravo, excellent presentation. Thank you, very informative presentation. Amazing. Well, now that you all have the blueprints, what are you gonna do? Surely you have questions.
Usually Satya had a very good question. Satya, welcome, and I saw you're there.
You've been voluntold, Satya, to ask a question.
Then I have to go to Neil. Neil, what do you comment?
No, just a comment. No, so Fouad, that was really incredible, and I have been wondering for a long time what some of these people's names were. So it's really great to get that historical aspect. But I just wanted to say, I mean, from when you were talking about the understanding and this relative truths and not absolutes, is one, amazing when you kind of think about it, but two, it's just the same way as I teach, where you talk about different levels. It's like levels, layers. It's layers of understanding. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You can possibly never get all the way there, but it's amazing that, yeah, these just different layers of understanding, just like you laid out, was fabulous.
Right. Yeah. And all these are going to be changed. You know, the whole idea that there's going to be somebody else in the future, and they're going to change these manifestations. And, you know, that's like relative. It's very much saying, you know, we don't have everything yet, but we have the best yet. We've got the best hypothesis because we just had a catalyst to make the chain reaction of what we have. And that, to me, you know, it just, obviously I understand the chemical reaction. So to me, I can speak in that language and it makes more sense to me.
And Fouad, you know, I agree about the changes, and certainly we get the social teachings, but I'm wondering your thoughts about these virtues. These are timeless wisdoms. We had them at the beginning of time, and do you see them going away, or that the expression is different?
So there was, you know, Dr. Lopez forced me to read some economic studies, which I've never thought of ever talking about an economist. And there was, I'm sorry, in another talk of mine, I have the guy's name. He said, when there is an economic crisis, he was talking specifically, when is a disaster, people look around to say, okay, what other solutions are there? And I think the Baha'is are not as vocal as they should be. They should be louder, saying, hey, we have solutions. So the virtues are, I mean, they're timeless. They're just, you know, you follow these and you'll have an easier life. But we get tired, we get lazy, we get our egos involved, we get jealous and hurt. And, you know, there's a zillion other, it's another talk altogether. Why we can't always get these timeless things right. But, you know, we can. We just have to focus on them. We have to, when someone irritates you, that's the best time to say, step back, step back. Now, understand, you can ask my wife, I get irritated, and I'm very sorry actually when I do, because I feel bad about it afterwards, but I still do. And that's really the time to do it. It's the people around you to make better. You don't have to go, and, you know, I've gone overseas and I've done medical missions and I've helped a lot of people, and it made my ego feel better. But then I realized, you know, I just have to be good to my mother, my spouse, my kids, where that's really where the work comes in. You know, it's easier to go overseas and save lives and do this and look like a big shot versus just essentially having a difficult conversation with your child and having a difficult discussion, you know, with your spouse. That's really where the work should go. That's where I think that's where you have to concentrate. And now that we can't travel anywhere, it's perfect.
Bless your humility and wisdom and discernment about being good and making a difference right where you are, you know, right at home.
Right now.
Thank you. Okay, who else has questions? Because I'm calling on self-discipline, not to elevate some of these virtues and offer the plan and all that kind of stuff. But Fouad, we got to talk offline after. Okay, next. Okay, so how about questions? You know, he spelled out compassion, understanding, empathy, honesty, competence, commitment, humanity, courage, respect, and optimism. Perhaps it's questions about how to live these during COVID, or maybe because we have time, if this is okay, if there's no more questions, how are you living these? Or how have you seen these virtues out there being expressed in ways that might uplift and motivate others?
I also have a question for those who are not familiar with the Baha'i faith. I was wondering if Dr. Abbas would talk a little bit about just stating the principles of the Baha'i faith, like, because these virtues are prevalent in all the previous dispensations and other religions. So what sets the Baha'i faith at this moment in the history of the human race?
Well, I think in those principles that I put, they may be in the other religions as well. But just like all the writings that I brought out from here, they're emphasized with the present dispensation. You know, the biggest one is unity. Unity in that all humans are united, that we really don't have different countries, but we're really citizens of the planet. And when you start to think like that, you start to say, gee, you know, those people on the border that are trying to get in, how can we solve that problem? It's not that we let everything in, or we just go bankrupt trying to support everything, but there are ways to be able to solve these problems. And really only through unity do you solve the problem. And this is actually, there's a mathematical model in that the bigger the crowd, the more likely someone is going, like there's a thing when you go to a fair and they have a cow there and they say, okay, how much does this cow weigh? And people give all sorts of answers. But if you have a group of people, the median is on the mark all the time, just within a few pounds. It's kind of creepy how it's done. But that all has to do with unity. What I mean is, if we're a lot of us and we're united, we will come to the right answer. And that's a big one. When you think of yourself as just being united, you will solve all the problems. You'll be able to solve global warming. You'll be able to solve the energy crisis, because there's not going to be special interest in trying to just keep away from, rather to keep all the wealth. There is, you know, other Baha'i principles, and though I can't like rattle them off quickly, but the idea that, you know, obviously men and women are equal, but I don't think that's a big deal now. Everybody knows that. It's like they didn't believe that in 1860s and 1840s. That was not actually true. I mean, women just got the right to vote 100 years ago in the United States, but that wasn't a principle that was accepted at that time. But notice that with time, all these principles get accepted. And that has to do, my belief is that Baha'u'llah is really a catalyst to that chain reaction. And it just takes a little time for the formula and the chemical reaction to occur. So the reason, the other things that core principles is the belief that extreme wealth and poverty does not really, should not really exist, because it's more harmonious that we all are somewhere in the middle within a gap. I think that makes sense. If you believe yourself as a body, and if your toes are not, you know, everybody says, oh my God, look at the toes, they're so low, they're nothing, they're little tiny things. Well, you know, try to chop off a couple of your toes. And not only will you hurt, but you will also bleed. And just like if you ignore the people that are downtrodden in the country, you're going to bleed at some point. You're going to hurt. And you may not realize by taking someone's health care away that you're going to hurt. You're going to hurt. I'm just, and you know, part of me is just, how in the world do people understand what they're voting for or what they're really doing? That people can really vote against their own special interests if spun a certain way. And it's just dangerous. And if we talk about it, and if we get more people's ideas, we'll be able to find these dangerous things, because they are.
Yeah, such wisdom, Fouad. Actually, Neil Porter put in question, what is the best way to build unity in a divided country? And I think you started to get at that.
So unity is individual. In essence, if you are good to the people around you, then you'll be good to the people that you work with. Then you'll be good to the community that you're building. Then people will be naturally attracted to you. But I must admit, it's a slow process. I mean, I'm used to, you know, some of you don't know me, but I'm a surgeon, and my wife will tell you, I said, honey, someone's bleeding, I got to go. And those are the few words that I have to say before I trot off and go, because I'm used to solving something very quickly. And I don't know if I'm an optimist either. I think I've used to be more optimistic than I am now in many ways, but I think that's how it starts. It starts with individual grassroots effort. And that's the only way that you're going to make it permanent. You know, I mean, I wish there's so many ways to incentivize people to be able to make them good. I know there was a talk about the where African Americans were prohibited from buying a house in a neighborhood. Well, you know, now if you would say, well, if we let 20% African Americans in that neighborhood, then everybody in the neighborhood can refinance with a 0.5 point less. Ooh, that's an incentive, isn't it? So there are ways to do this. I mean, I'm not a banker or anything, but I know there's a ways to do this. It's not like there aren't. It's just that by working on yourself and trying to be a better person, which you're going to fail repeatedly. It's not, you know, as I say, we're not all Jesus Christ, but by trying to always catch ourselves, you will then shift the curve. You will be better in the long run. But it just starts really, you know, who do you treat around you?
Hey, who else has questions?
Well, Dara, I just want to make a comment in really elaborating what Dr. Fouad said, Dr. Abbas said already. You know, as he said already, the truth in all of the religion is the same. And he also referred to Baha'u'llah refers to mankind as a human body. You know, human body goes through development. The same DNA is in the child that is in the adult. But in the DNA does not express itself in that way that is expressed in adult. In other words, what I'm trying to say, application is so important for the capacity that is given to the individual. At this time, unity is possible. If we really make an effort, unity is possible. We can, 24 hours, I can go from this side of the globe to other side of the globe and come back. This is amazing. This is unity. The means are given to us, really. We know from the scientific point of view, every one of us have the same DNA. This is amazing. Now there is nobody can come and tell me that he's better or less than I am. These are applications. These are means are given to us. Now we have to take advantage of it. As he said, the truth is in all of the religion. There's no question about it. And anybody says I'm better than somebody else, he or she is not looking at in that way that wants to see the reality.
Absolutely, such passion, enthusiasm, and wisdom, Dr. B.
Well, I use, that's what it is. Well, I'm really delighted, Dr. Fouad. I can't tell you, thank you enough. And public, in other words, the people that they are here speak for themselves. I don't have to say anything. And I wanted to let you guys know that Dr. Abbas is going to come back for sure. We are going to have him to revisit, you know, as you know. And the good thing about this, we don't have clergy. So everybody is clergy. So as Albor says, everybody is clergy. So please think about it.
Absolutely. And before we transition maybe to a closing prayer, any other thoughts, I just put in the chat box an invitation that on Sunday at 4 o'clock, we're having a Thanksgiving, giving thanks to God devotional and spiritual unity feast. And it's open up to everyone. And if you want to copy and paste the link and share it, it would be a joy and an honor to have you and anyone else that you wish to bring.
Thank you. Rebecca, are you ready?
Can I just make a quick comment?
Please.
So thank you, Mr. Abbas, for sharing. And it's, you know, it was fascinating to hear the perspective of being a good doctor and being a good human being. I know that Baha'u'llah says in his writings that he's the divine physician. And I always thought it was just like medicine, you know, okay, he knows the solution to all the problems. But what I thought was fascinating in your presentation was that these players, as you call them, these individuals have showed us each of those, you know, capacities, each of those virtues. And that's where the healing comes from. Because if you know how to have understanding, how to have compassion, how to show empathy in like the worst circumstances, in all the oppression, you know, if you show that commitment, like the story you gave from the Bible, I mean, that is the example. That's the model, right? That we all can strive for. And I just have to thank you because I'd always just assumed it as like you said, a problem solving sort of, you know, here's the prescription and go deal with it versus I am the example. I will listen to you. I will hold your hand. I will walk with you until you come, you know, you come to that point of unity. And that was just fascinating. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Very well said. Yeah, that is the prescription, and that is the solution. Understanding helps you solve the problem. Unity and understanding everybody's points of view with true compassion, we're always going to get the right place. We're always going to get the right place.
Wow, thank you. Rebecca, welcome,
Yes.
Martha. Go ahead.
Okay. Thy name is my healing, O my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the all-wise.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Zara
you.
Khanum, you can
Beautiful. So everyone unmute your tea, your dessert, your leftover chicken.
That's great.
Yeah, so inspiring.
Make sure
What a
have
lovely
extra cup-
group you
extra
have.
cup of tea and also some rice and chicken also.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a joy to have you.
What a lovely group you have back east there. I could see why
I
Gary
see.
was attracted to the faith through you all and has been committed ever since.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. I hope you'll join us again.
Yes, that was lovely. Thank you so much. And what a lovely talk too. That was very inspiring. And some of the pictures that he shared, I brought tears to my eyes as well. I was getting all choked up there, and it really hit home where that's such reality. You know, we're the humanity of us, and oh wow, it was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Abbas. That was wonderful.
Kia, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
It's good to see you here, Kathy. I'm glad you actually were able to log on and attend.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you down the road in a bit.
Yes, indeed.
Our new neighbor. Welcome to New Mexico.
Hi, Betcha.
Nice.
Someone needs to tell the Zoom people that we need more icons like tea and chicken and rice.
Yes.
I'm
Well,
looking forward to that day that I'll have everybody there.
Here, let me see if I can do a screenshot of some chicken and rice. Just Google it and drop it in the chat box.
Right.
Or take a picture. Next week, that's your homework. Everybody bring your...
Eileen, please give our love to Marguerite.
Have a great
I
night,
will.
everyone.
Good
Have a
night.
great night.
Good night.
Love you all.
Khaled,